ask yourself at retirement, what do you want to have accomplished? If you could go and kind of write out your retirement speech right now, and you want to thank the people that you want to thank, or the people that helped you along the way, or the things that you achieved, what will you have achieved? Because here's the thing. We usually look at vocations like this. We think, hey, I'm good at math. I want to go into something with math. I'm good at science. I want to go into something with science. And these things are great. You have to start somewhere. But what's missing from the puzzle is thinking about what it is that a job entails. So, for instance, if we were to look at the pros and cons of different vocations, we should know a few things. So, for instance, if I wanted to be a doctor of medicine, one of the things that you have to know is you're going to go to school for 4 years in your undergrad. Then you're going to go to medical school for 4 years. And here's the interesting thing after that, and that is you then go into clinical trials that last anywhere between 3 to 5 and sometimes 7 years before you actually get to be the doctor that you're studying for. And so if you think about it, you go into college and you've got 8 years of college, followed by possibly 5 years of these clinical studies, and you're going to find yourself in a situation where it won't be until that point into where you get to practice the medicine that you're going to go into. Now, here's the cool part about it is certain degrees such as this have a real high-end pay scale. And for some of us, that means something to us. It means that we might be able to buy the house of our dreams. It might be able to mean that we get to take the vacations that we want to take. But it's something that we need to think about, that along with doing this vocation, you might actually literally have life and death situations that you're working with. Now, for some of us, hey, that's what I want to do. And some of us might say, you know what? I don't want anything to do with life and death situations. That's not something that I would actually want to participate in. Same thing is true for being a CEO. We have people who go into the workforce, they get into a business, and they aspire that someday they want to be the CEO of a company. Here's the thing that goes along with that, is that there is a time commitment that happens with a CEO. There is a stress level of decision-making, anxiety in your company that you have to take with you. So whereas you might get to have 3 houses, you might get to have these fancy vacations, you might get to drive the car that you've always wanted to drive, the question is that in being responsible in this type of environment, in this vocation, are you also willing to accept the time that goes into this? If you look up CEOs, you're going to understand that it's not a 40-hour work week. It could possibly be a 70-hour work week almost every week. It could turn out to be a situation where you get into your vocation and you don't get to take vacations as much because you're needed in the office. And if you do get to take the vacation, maybe you're having to tell your family, hey, I have to work for 3 or 4 hours this morning. You guys are going to go off and have some fun. I have to stay back because I'm responsible in my job to do it. Now, you get to take these wonderful things. Maybe it's the pay. Maybe it's the life things that you're hoping to purchase in your life. But there's also sometimes a trade-off. Next thing we're talking about is an entrepreneur. This is somebody who goes out and they've created something. They have a business. They are in charge of their own business. Maybe they've created a widget and they're out selling their widget to the world. But the question is, there's great things that are payoff because you're in charge of your own business. You get to hire everybody. You are the vision of your company. Whatever you say goes. But at the same time, you're in charge of everybody. And you're responsible for their livelihoods. You're responsible for paying them on time. People who create these widgets and go out to sell, that is what they're interested in. And so the question sometimes comes, are they as interested in learning about health insurance for all their people that work at their company? Are they interested in having to deal with the hiring and firing of all their employees? And so with taking that step of being an entrepreneur, there's also this different level of stress and anxiety that goes along with this. Lastly is what I'm a part of. I'm a part of the public sector. Teachers, firemen, policemen, People you've seen growing up, and it's one of the early vocations people latch onto in elementary school because it's what they see. One of the bonuses for me is I get summer vacation. Now, being a band director, I don't get as much summer vacation, but I do get summer vacation. It's an awesome perk to my job. But I also know that by being a teacher, I'm going to find myself in a situation where I'm not going to be able to buy anything and everything that I want to. I might not have 3 houses that I'm going to get to purchase. I might not get to drive the fancy car. But at the end of the day, I know that by looking at my vocation of the things that are wonderful about my job and also the things that maybe aren't wonderful about my job. And that has helped me decide for myself my career. But you'll often hear people say, you should follow your passion in life. It's something where people come across, what is your passion? Follow your passion, get a college degree in your passion. Someone else said, a man named Mark Cuban said, you should follow your effort. And he has a different take on this. You might be familiar with Mark Cuban if you've ever seen the show Shark Tank. But he's an entrepreneur. He invests in companies on the Shark Tank, but he made his money in the technology world. Right now, he owns the Dallas Mavericks, and he's a really public figure out there. And he has an interesting take on, instead of following your passion, he says to follow your effort.
And I'm going to tell you something that a lot of people, 99% of people disagree with me on, right? Everybody says follow your passions, right? I say follow your effort. It's amazing how we're all passionate about things. We are all passionate about something. Helping veterans, helping this organization, helping this group, that's great. But no matter what, it all nets out to where do you put your time? Because when people put in their time, you get better at things. And when you get better at something and get good at something, then you have a chance to be great at something. And you know what I've learned? Nobody ever quits anything they're great at. And once you get great at it, it's amazing how passionate you become about it. Follow your efforts, right? Because it's not in the dreaming, it's in the doing.
I followed my effort, and I had no idea. This video hadn't come out yet. It was many years ago that I came across this. But my own story is this. I didn't like to mow the lawn at my house. I didn't like to do any of the things that my parents asked me to do for chores. I didn't like math. I didn't like science. I didn't like many of my core classes, but I loved to play the drum. And no one ever had to ask me to practice playing my drum. And so what would happen is I soon realized something, and that is when I went to a gig, I would have my drum set up at my house. It takes me 30 minutes to tear down my drums. I put 15 minutes, takes me to get it in the car. I drive to my gig, 15 minutes getting it out of the car, 30 minutes setting up my drums again at the performance site, playing for 3 hours, then 30 minutes of tearing down my drums, 15 minutes putting it back on my car, driving back to my house, 15 minutes of getting it out of my car again, and then 30 minutes of setting up my drums again. And the thing about it was somewhere around my senior year, my first year in college, I realized this. This is the one thing I never complain about giving effort to. It's the one thing that for me, I found that I am willing to do whatever it was in this field that made me happy. And it was at that moment that I then said, you know what? It's time to make this my career. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew my effort lied in my ability to not complain about working hard at something. And I followed that effort, which was actually also my passion. And so as that then came a part of me, that then became how I've spent my life. Now, as I started putting 2 and 2 together, I've got so many kids that I want to help find the same effort and same passion that I have. My own kids, I want them to have this same passion and find what they're going to do for their vocation. And what occurred to me was, maybe I should write a Venn diagram for all of this. And so I got on Canva and I typed in Venn diagram. And as I'm looking for Venn diagrams, I came across a Venn diagram which was exactly what someone else had already done. Okay? And I came across this. It's called Ikigai. It's from Okinawa, Japan. It's a place in the world that has some of the oldest, on average, the oldest population, as well as the happiest population. And so this concept right here is talking about that it's a reason for being. And in the Japanese culture, they call this, they refer to someone that gives a person a sense of purpose and a reason for living. And they take into account some of the things that we're talking about. What you love, what the world needs. If the world doesn't need your occupation, ding, 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 maybe we shouldn't be pursuing something like that. What can you get paid for in what the world needs? And then what are your strengths? And if you take this all together and you piece together these four components, it comes up with Ikigai. And as I started looking at this, I was like, awesome. This is exactly what I would love to show my students. But guys, I think it's missing one thing. And so the thing I think it's missing is number 5. You follow along with number 1. What are your interests? Number 2, what are your talents? Number 3, what are vocations that actually have your talent? What is number 4? What's the monetary goal to this? And then lastly, the thing that I think should be added to this discussion is what is the stress and time involved in your job? If you look at the vocations we talked about, being a doctor, being a CEO, being an entrepreneur, being on your own, doing your own thing, or possibly working in the public sector, all of those have pluses and minuses to them in regards to finances. All of them have plus and minus to the duties that you're having to do, but they also have something to do with the anxiety and the stress and the time that's committed to the job. Because here's the thing, guys. The last thing that you're going to want to do is go and spend 4 years at a college. Get your degree. Get out into the field and realize this job stresses me out. This job doesn't make me happy. This job is not something that I am finding enjoyment out of. And if you could take that 65-year-old version of yourself, where you're about ready to retire, and you're going to think about, what is it that I want to do? What stamp do I want to put on the world? Can you take in all of this environment to help make your decision for what you're going to do in life?